In the year 1602, a group of merchants in the Dutch Republic created something the world had never seen before. Not a ship, not a colony, an idea. They invented a company that ordinary people could own in pieces by buying shares. A company that could raise money from thousands of strangers at once. A company that could live longer than any of its founders and pour that capital into voyages across the world. They called it the United East India Company. History would know it by its initials. The VOC. Within decades, this single corporation would command its own armies and navies. It could sign treaties, seize territory, and execute its enemies. It would build an empire of trade. And at its peak, it may have been worth more, adjusted for inflation, than the largest companies of today combined. This is the story of the first modern corporation and how a business became more powerful than most countries. We live in a world built by corporations. They shape our economies, our cities, and our daily lives. But corporations had to be invented, and the template for the modern company was forged 4 centuries ago. It was forged in a small, waterlogged republic fighting for its survival. The Dutch were latecomers to the spice trade. The Portuguese and the Spanish had sailed those routes for a century, but the Dutch had a different weapon, a better way to organize money. Before the VOC, a voyage to the east was a single, terrifying gamble. Merchants funded one ship for one trip. If the ships came back laden with spices, everyone grew rich. If they sank, the investors were ruined. It was all or nothing, one voyage at a time. The Dutch innovation was to make each voyage part of something permanent. Shares that anyone could buy and, crucially, sell. Suddenly, you did not need to be a great merchant to invest in global trade. A baker, a widow, a craftsman, all could own a sliver of a fleet sailing to the other side of the world. This pooling of capital from the many into an entity that outlived them all unlocked an extraordinary new force. And it would change the world, for better and for worse. To understand why the VOC was revolutionary, look at the structure it pioneered. First, permanent capital. The money invested stayed in the company. It was not paid back after a single voyage. This gave the company a stable foundation to plan, build, and operate for the long term. Second, transferable shares. If you needed your money, you did not withdraw it from the company. You sold your stake to someone else. Those shares could be bought and sold, their prices rising and falling on news from across the world. It invented the stock market. In Amsterdam, the world's first true stock exchange came to life. And third, limited liability. If the company failed, a shareholder could lose only what they had put in and no more. Permanent capital, tradable shares, a stock market, limited liability. Together, they were the blueprint of the modern company. But the VOC was not only a financial innovation. Its charter gave it powers that belonged to kings. The Dutch state, Too busy and too distant to manage trade on the far side of the world, effectively delegated the powers of a government to a private corporation. The VOC could build forts and wage war. It could negotiate treaties with foreign kings. It could mint its own coins. It could imprison, judge, and execute people. This was a private company wielding the authority of a sovereign state, and it used those powers. To control the lucrative spice trade, the company seized territory across the Indian Ocean and the East Indies. It established a fortified capital at Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, from which it ruled its commercial empire. It fought the Portuguese, the English, and local rulers for control of the trade routes. The company's pursuit of monopoly could be brutal. To corner the global market in spices, the VOC used violence, coercion, and conquest, in some cases devastating entire islands and communities. The same structure that raised capital from peaceful investors had become an engine of domination. A private company behaving like a conquering empire. At its height, the VOC was a commercial colossus on a scale never seen before. It became the largest trading company in the world, dwarfing its rivals. It employed tens of thousands of sailors, clerks, soldiers, and merchants, and ran a trading network that spanned from the Cape of Good Hope to Japan. Its ships carried pepper, nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon, spices so valuable they were worth their weight in gold. Along with silk, porcelain, tea, and textiles, back to Europe, where they sold for staggering profits. For decades, the company paid out enormous dividends, sometimes returning huge sums to its shareholders. This river of wealth helped fuel the Dutch Golden Age, an astonishing period of prosperity. The profits of global trade flowed into Amsterdam, funding grand canal houses, science, and art. The wealth the VOC extracted from the world helped pay for one of the great cultural flowerings in history. It is a profound and uncomfortable truth. The beauty of the Dutch Golden Age was financed by the same ships and owned by the same shareholders that built an empire of force. No empire lasts forever, and no company is too big to fail. Over the 18th century, the mighty VOC slowly rotted from within. The very size that made it powerful made it bloated and increasingly impossible to manage. Corruption spread through its ranks. Officials enriched themselves, smuggling goods, falsifying accounts, and treating the company's wealth as their own. The costs, the forts, the soldiers, the wars ballooned, eating into the profits that trade brought in. Competition intensified. The British East India Company and others challenged Dutch dominance. The monopoly grew harder to defend. The company began to borrow heavily, sinking deeper into debt, even as it continued paying dividends it could no longer afford. A fatal habit of rewarding shareholders with money the company did not have. By the late 18th century, the VOC was a hollow giant, drowning in debt and mismanagement. War with Britain shattered its trade, and its finances finally collapsed. In 1799, The company that had once ruled the seas was formally dissolved. The first great corporation had collapsed, brought down not by a single enemy, but by corruption, overreach, and the slow rot of its own success. The story of the VOC is the origin story of the modern world, and it carries 3 lasting lessons. First, it shows the staggering power of pooled capital, the ability to mobilize resources on an unimaginable scale. Every corporation, every stock exchange, every share you can buy descends from what the Dutch built. Second, it shows the danger. When a profit-seeking company is given the powers of a state, the results can be catastrophic for the people caught in its path. And third, its fall is the timeless warning that no institution is invincible. The greatest threat to a dominant institution is often not its rivals, but its own success and complacency. Though the VOC died in 1799, its invention only grew more powerful. The corporation, with its tradable shares, permanent capital, and limited liability, became the dominant institution of the modern economy. The stock exchange it helped pioneer in Amsterdam evolved into the great financial centers of London, New York, and the world. Today, the largest companies on the planet, the tech giants, the banks, the global conglomerates, are all, in their basic structure, descendants of the VOC. When you buy shares in a company, when you check a stock price, when you trust a corporation, you are using tools the VOC helped create. Its shadow falls across the entire modern economy. But the VOC left a double inheritance. It gave us an engine of modern prosperity. The corporation that can mobilize vast resources and outlive any individual. And it gave us the warning of how concentrated corporate power can override the rights and lives of ordinary people. The first great corporation was a wonder and a warning at once. And we still live every single day inside the world that it made. Historians still debate the full ledger of the VOC, the wealth it created, and the precise scale of its power. But the essential truth is beyond dispute. In the merchant houses of the Dutch Republic, they invented an institution that would remake the world, the modern corporation. Fueled by pooled capital and capable of acting on a global scale, the VOC embodied both the promise and the peril of that invention, generating breathtaking wealth and terrible harm, often in the same voyage. Its ships are long gone, but its true creation, the corporation as a permanent, share-owning, world-spanning machine, endures. The merchants of 1602 did not just build a company, they built the blueprint for the modern age. From a company that became more powerful than nations, we turn next to a single remarkable woman who built a trading fortune, and who would employ and then marry a man whose name would change history. Subscribe to Empire Builders and join us next time for the story of the businesswoman who hired a prophet, Khadija.